Hey guys, Dane here, Adaptive Exercise and Rehab, coming back to another video, this one going over communication disorders with clients with disabilities. So with my experience with disabilities and communication disorders that come with those disabilities, I have experience with stroke, traumatic brain injury, locked-in syndrome, and then cerebral palsy as well then too. There are a few other communication disorders that are scattered within there too, but those are the four primary ones that I have most experience with. Within those four, locked-in syndrome is going to be the most extreme. And that basically is meaning that extreme, they have the least amount of ability to communicate with the people around them. As we go forward from that, it gets less extreme from there. Basically from that, it seems that cerebral palsy, so the individual that I'm referring to is nonverbal. Her vocal cords never actually form, so she's not able to vocalize anything. But one is yes, two is no, and that basically is how she's able to get her point across. But she is able to move her right side of her body, right side of her right arm, essentially. So with that, she's able to grab onto things if things are painful. So she's able to have more of an immediate kind of communication in terms of what's going wrong or what's going on with her. But definitely is still something that is not able to vocalize and say what's going on. So that immediacy of behind getting things corrected and kind of accommodated for is still a little bit delayed too. From there, traumatic brain injury too. So traumatic brain injury, a little bit of experience with here and there, but that's where we have individuals who just don't have the best ability to articulate what they're trying to say or the ability to understand what you're trying to say to them too. So if you're giving very detailed analysis of what they're doing or how to correct a body mechanic or something sort of like that, you want to break it down to the most basic form of that communication at first, and then add more cues and more details as you go forward from there. And then lastly, from the experience that I've had, is working with strokes, and that comes in the form of aphasia. So aphasia, in my particular experience, has become in the form of expressive aphasia. So there's two different forms, expressive and receptive aphasia. Expressive is the ability to say what you're thinking and say what you're feeling. Receptive is the ability to understand what people are saying to you and being able to understand and articulate, I guess more so understand what's going around in the world around you. So in my particular examples, with my experience, I have experience with expressive aphasia. So my clients are able to understand the cues that I'm able to give to them. They're able to understand what I'm trying to work through and how I'm able to do that. But in terms of what their body is telling them and what they're, how they're positioning themselves, things of the sort like that, it gets a little tricky because they don't have the best ability to speak to, hey, my arm is hurting here, or hey, that's painful there, or hey, this is a little bit too much of a challenge for me. So those four main categories, those four main disabilities are where I have the most experience with. But I want to focus majority of my time with this video working on locked-in syndrome. This is actually how we use this sheet right here to be able to communicate with our client with locked-in syndrome. So as you can see, 5 lines, 1 through 5. Basically, we divide the alphabet into relatively equal portions, with it being 26 letters. It gets a little tricky on the last line. But basically what we do when we talk into Marty, Marty's the individual with locked-in syndrome, is we'll say, all right, Marty, how you doing today? We have an idea of how he's doing, so we can kind of go, all right, line 1, line 2, and then he'll look up. When he looks up, that's when we pause on line 2, and then we start listening to letters. So we'll go F, G, and then he'll look up. So then what we do is we write G on our notepad right here, and then we go to the next one. And then it's letter by letter by letter that we get the whole word down to. So from there, we're still asking how he's doing. So line 1, line 2, line 3, he would look up, and then you'd go K, L, M, N, O, and he would look up. So we have G-O written down, what we can expect from that, and this is where we kind of start guessing a little bit here too, as we say, doing good. G-O-O-D, pretty easy. And then from there, we are off to the races too. It's one of the things that I'm pretty hesitant to try to fill in his sentences. I try to not do that very much because I feel like it infringes on his actual response and his ability to actually say what he's needing to say. And that becomes very tricky when you have a yes or a no on, hey, are you positioned correctly? And you have a pressure sore that's, starting to form on your glute, but you're not able to say, yeah, my left side of my hip right here on the, the bone is starting to get some pressure and it's really uncomfortable. So I always ask this individual in particular, hey, are you doing okay? Are you where you need to be? So I'll ask that first portion, then they'll go yes or no, and then they always say yes. And then from there, I give them the ability to tell me what's going on detail-wise. Is it you need your left arm moved a little bit? You need your catheter checked? You want to have a little bit of rotation in your mid-back? What's best for you to make sure that you are set up so that we can be able to have a comfortable session that you feel like you're taken care of? So now that we've gone over the disabilities and exactly kind of what to expect from those disabilities and how to kind of scale the disability span of communication, we're going over how to work with those different disabilities. So as you can kind of tell from what I've alluded to so far is basic yes or no questions are going to give you the best starter. So how are you doing today? That gives you a more detailed response. So that allows them to say, I'm not doing very good, or this or that, or one thing or another. Say, you having a good day today? I'm doing good. All right, cool. Let's get going here. Granted, that does kind of predispose them to say yes, but in the same regard too, that's something that is kind of pushing forth your energy onto them, and you're trying to give that of yourself so that they can be like, all right, yeah, I'm gonna get up and I'm gonna give it my best effort today to make sure that I can give what I can give, and that's huge too. So yes or no questions are absolutely crucial. Communicating clearly and effectively, that's arguably another huge portion too, if not the top one. So if you're not clear in what you're asking that individual, if you're not able to have an articulate yes or no question or this or that question, you're not clearly and effectively articulating yourself so that client's able to understand what you're trying to get out. So making sure that you are effectively communicating to that client, but also to the individuals around you that, hey, I need help with this right here, or hey, I'm seeing his left foot start to move off to the side over here, or I'm not able to spot on this portion there, I'm starting to fatigue here. Communication's absolutely essential. And with Marty's particular case, a lot of times when I'm working with him, I'm spotting from the backside of him, so I'm not able to see his eyes. So I'll have somebody, if he's looking down, I'll have somebody squat down in front of him, look directly at his eyes and say, Marty, if you need anything, you look up rapidly. You'll just look up as much as possible. And just me doing that right there, I got eye fatigue. So thinking to myself, how much can I ask him to look up and look down? That's going to create a lot of eye strain and a lot of vestibular kind of discombobulation, we'll say. So I want to be conscious of how much I'm asking him, but also the duration between questions too. There have been times where I've asked questions to this individual and it's been too quick between the questions and he isn't able to respond effectively. So I think he says no when he's actually saying yes or something. And then who knows what we could have done wrong or done accordingly or done improperly during that point in time too. So you really want to make sure you're effective and clear in your ability to speak to people and speak to your clients, but also using the individuals around you and using a mirror or using a communication board or using different leverage points. Find ways to make it work for yourself. Alluding to what I was just saying before too, so trying different communication techniques. So this one right here, this was actually a refined technique that we used to use. So when I started here 4 years ago, we would actually divide the alphabet up into 13 letters on the top end and 13 letters on the bottom end. I forget where the dividing point was. I want to say it was right around J or K, I believe, maybe L. But we would go up or down, and he would look up, and then we would go A, B, C, D, all the way to K or L to get through half of the alphabet. And that would take so long to get each individual letter. So we realized, what happens if we break it down into 5 lines right here? And this is something that a caretaker I brought in for us one time. Broke it down into 5 lines, so we know it's not in line 1. Perfect, let's get to line 2. It's easier ability for us to be able to get more out of him faster. There's also different techniques with Marty in particular where we're trying to use, I'm still building it right now, but we're trying to use a transparent transparent board essentially, to be able to have different keywords, so catheter, hands, torso, butt, push, pull, things of the sort like that, or we can look through the board, make eye contact with him at one spot and say, all right, it's this catheter that needs to be checked right now. So there's different ways that you can go about doing things and different ways that you can go about communicating with individuals that are very, very effective. But it just takes that extra effort, that extra intensity, that extra, what if I tried this right here? And that goes a long way with your clients as well too. That's something that they get a lot from, and that's where you develop a lot of respect and rapport from them as well too. And that's where they start asking you if you can, do something outside of the place, or helping them with something at home too. And that's where you really feel like you're actually, giving of yourself. Lastly, so with aphasia, one thing that I've found with the 2 individuals that I've worked with aphasia, again, it's expressive aphasia, so it's their ability to speak to what they're trying to say, is asking things that have had an emotional response for them in the past. So one individual I've asked, he has 2 grandkids that were just recently born, and it's the light of his life. So it's one thing I go, hey, have you talked to your grandkid recently? And they go, and then they start, yes, I talked to her last week, and it's more delayed than I was just doing right there, but it's still 50 to 60% faster than what they normally do. And that's something where you see that, oh goodness gracious, you see a different memory start to form, and you see something where they start to like really understand what's going inside their head, and then they start to try to speak to it as much as they can. Additionally to the other individual with aphasia, he can't speak to his memories very well, but he can write to them very well though. So we give him a pen and a paper, and he's right-handed, and his right hand is paralyzed, but his left hand he's able to write with. So we're able to give him a pen and paper, and then he's able to write what he's thinking and what he's feeling and how it's going and things of the sort like that too. So trying different means of communication is absolutely essential as well too. So that's all I got for the disorders that we have for our populations. So again, locked-in syndrome 1, cerebral palsy, stroke, and then TBI. All of those require different modes and different strategies of communication, but again, breaking it down into yes or no questions, this or that questions, and then having clear, concise, effective communication with using different devices and different utilities that are necessary to make sure that you're getting your point across, making sure that they're feeling heard then too. If you guys have any questions, feel free to leave a comment, and if you like the video, feel free to like and subscribe. Catch you guys in the next one.